Racism is everywhere and it's institutionalized. We cannot really be racist because racism is prejudice plus power. Nothing I say up here nor anywhere in the world will impact stop.
Why can I choose my pronouns but you can't choose not to be called cis? For the same reason white people can't use the N-word. You can. You'll just be called a racist for being a racist. Those are called consequences. Cis is not an identity, it's a descriptor, it's an adjective, just like transphobic or racist. And look, you cannot identify as racist if you want, but that doesn't mean that black people aren't going to call you racist if you're white and use the N-word. And you cannot identify as transphobic if you want, but if you reject the term cis as a cis person like this, trans people are going to call you transphobic.
Hoo-wee. Lord. And we're back at the beatzillapdx official news break. And as you heard from our very odd friend that opened up this broadcast, there is a real big push to push certain agendas on Black folks. And there's a lot of hidden connections going on in a lot of these different areas as well. So this right here is called the Anti-Reparations Coalition. And so we're going to get to it because, again, if you didn't remember, or if you forgot rather, that some of these trans groups have been trying to get reparations, talking about trans reparations. So just keep that in mind when you start hearing people talk like this. Not to mention, it's Black folks that have pushed back about being called cis. We are just men and women. You can refer to us as Black men and Black women. We do not do cis. That is something else that does. That's just your social construct that we do not conform to because we will not be named by outsiders. So when we identify to you what we identify as, we need you to accept that just as much as you want us to accept your identity. With that being said, we are going to have to look at some different videos that have came about. Of course, y'all know about Jill Biden. And when you see Jill Biden and what she did, that kind of also represents the attitude of if foundational Black Americans get reparations, well, then everybody else should get it too. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start playing you the mind state. And we're going to go through a few things in this broadcast that will kind of highlight a certain connection of thinking. And not to mention, not everybody is left and not everybody is on the right, but however, their agenda is absolutely all white. So with that being said, let's just do a refresher with Jill Biden, shall we?
So last night, I attended the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship. And how many of you saw it? It was like so exciting, wasn't it? It was such a great game. And you know, I'm old enough that I remember when we got Title IX and we fought so hard, right? We fought so hard. And look at where women's sports has come today. So we got to keep working. We got to keep working. So congratulations to both teams. So I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do. So, you know, we'll have LSU come. But you know what? I'm going to tell Joe, I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game. So, right? So winners and losers, that's sportsmanship. That's good sportsmanship.
And no, that's not sportsmanship. That's just called being anti-Black. And you know, we are understanding what these things are now. We are calling the dominant society out for these things because we understand what they are. And you know, we also understand when we have opposition in blackface. So we also have seen this new push. Let me show you all again. which y'all see on the screen. It's in the thumbnail, of course. And we spoke about that on my last broadcast as well. But we have to talk about this. And they're having another meeting today, by the way. That is probably starting right now as we speak. So again, this coalition and looking at one of the, I guess this is one of the other releases that they let go today, or maybe yesterday for the meeting today. Let me read this to y'all because y'all have to just understand the devious nature of these anti-reparation coalition folks. So this is from the, what's the name of their organization again? Let me see what that says again. So was it NBCI Trust? So here's what their last little press release says. It says, Dear all, I am writing today because the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, which is the OMB, is currently working to update the race and ethnicity standards and guidelines. This review process is standard and intends to maximize accuracy and comparability of race and ethnicity across federal data sets. Some special interest groups are pushing to have the terms like descendants of slavery, descendants of slaves, American freedmen, or foundational Black Americans replace the current race category, which is Black or African American, or establish a separate ethnicity category for all federal data collection, including on the United States Census. These types of changes will cause great confusion and have a devastating effect on the accuracy of data collection concerning Black communities. Now, that right there, when you hear that, what does that sound like to you? Does it sound like somebody trying to possibly muck up the lineage-based reparations conversation? And with that, if you're doing that, then you are anti-reparations itself. And what you are doing is proposing a grift in the midst of a righteous owed debt from the wickedness of this country due to its own citizens. So, and these are people who foundationally built this place before it was even actually a legitimate country. You had colonies. These places were built with Black hands and bodies. So yes, those would be the descendants of those slaves. Those would be those foundational Black Americans. And then when they were freed, those would be the freed men. But however, they would not be African American at that time. They could possibly be Black, but of course you have foundational Black Americans. So that's where you have the identification sewn up with Black. It goes on to read. Confusion surrounding how to identify Black Americans or African Americans will potentially lead to further in undercounting, resulting in fewer resources for Black communities across the United States. Black people have long been considered a hard to count population and are miscounted in the United States Census for varying reasons. Let me stop there and just go back to the beginning of that. Confusion surrounding how to identify Black Americans or African Americans. There is really not a lot of confusion because among all of those groups that you identified, which have lineage based out of this country, we're all certain. That is one thing that you could say for certain amongst all the groups is delineation and reparations. That is consistent throughout all of these groups, with the exception of the Pan-Africans, who, of course, represent Africa. not America. Like this woman here, because she's Nigerian. She does not represent our lineage. She does not represent the lineage that is owed reparations for the atrocities done here in the American Holocaust of slavery. And then everything else that comes along with that. But it's still, you can't come in here and say, well, hey, I came and showed up after the tree started bearing fruit, and so I think I should be able to be here too. No, we're talking about the people who had to go through it from the roots to now. Let's see. Anything else outside of that is a completely separate claim. Let me repeat that. Anything outside of that is a completely separate claim. Let's see. So again, we should not add another reason to that list. Now, again, talking about undercounted for various reasons and resources. See, foundational Black Americans are not seeing resources to their communities. That's the reason for delineation. The ADOS crowd would say the same thing. The Freedmen crowd would say the same thing. Foundational Black Americans are absolutely saying the same thing. So again, we're still tying, because at the end of the day, you are still looking at where all of these different names that you can name, you're looking at one lineage. Regardless of how you identify it, you're looking at one lineage. And this is to make sure that that lineage has other nationalities grafted into it, just based on the color of their skin. That is not what makes us foundational Black Americans. The lineage is not about race, and the lineage is not slavery. This lineage went through slavery. That's why this lineage is owed reparations because of it. Let's see. So additionally, while descendants of slaves/slavery may be terms exchanged in some reparations conversations, using slavery as an official government race or ethnic description for Black Americans or African Americans is dehumanizing. Now, let me explain something right there. No. See, this is when you start hearing talk like that, that means somebody is trying to get you to do something against your own claim. And so they're saying by you taking claim and ownership of being an American, a foundational Black American, because there is no America without your lineages and ancestors' contribution in building this place. None of the rest of the world would enjoy half of the things they do. They all have to deal with the American dollar. So look at how many places that foundational Black Americans actually touch on a daily basis, still to this day, based off of that absolute slavery in this country. So why would you want anybody to relinquish that birthright for you? Because you don't have that birthright. So now you're going to tell us that it is a problem for us to separate the understanding of who we are from any other group that does not share our blood? That's insane. But it's dirtbaggish and backstabby-ish. But nonetheless, she has Black skin. So yeah, we are one, right? But you listen to how she is trying to disrupt, and I've shown you 2 different posts from her about disrupting reparations. Let's see. It goes on to say, reparation conversation using slavery as an official. Now, and slavery is not an official government race. We are the descendants of slavery. That slavery was something that's of public record. You're not making slavery a racial category. And they know good and well that's not what's happening, but that is the way that they are promoting it. And the reason why it is worded that way is to catch the eyes of all of those other anti-black groups, such as the AAPI and the ADL type of folks and all of these other different random, especially those Hispanics. All of these different groups that this is dog whistle talk for them. And they put blackface on it. So now you can go ahead and understand. And the reason why I'm starting with this, because we're going to get to these other people. I just want to show you this is not a one-sided effort. It is a family thing, along with their other friends. And so this Dahomey descendant right here, this Jam woman, like I said, a Dahomey descendant, a suspected Dahomey descendant. You know what I mean? We have to keep an eye on them, and there ain't no camaraderie because we are not all one, and we are not African. If we're African, and every white person and Chinese person walking the face of the earth is also African. And if we're not shoving this down their throat, do not push it on us. Let's see where we at. Yeah. Our ancestors. Our ancestors were enslaved, but slavery was not their ethnicity, and thus it should not be ours. Our ancestors. See, ma'am, those aren't your ancestors, so there is no our there. Understand what they are now trying to do. Somehow we have black immigrants now trying to falsely claim relationships and relation and blood ties to slavery here. How is that taking place without lying? You understand what I'm saying? We know that the well-being and advancement of black communities is of importance to you and or your organization. Please consider submitting a public comment as an individual or organization in support of keeping the race category Black or African American to help the accuracy of future counts. Lord. To the integrity technical working group on race and ethnicity standards at the Office of Management and Budget. And here's the sample comment. I oppose changing the name, description, and definition of the race category Black or African American for federal data collection, including for the U.S. Census. Accurately documenting the Black American population is one of the highest priorities. Our names and identifiers have historical precedence and value. Our names and identifiers have historical precedence and value. African American? That's not historic. And neither is Black, to be quite honest. Neither one of those are historic. Neither one of them. See, it would be historic for, I guess, to an immigrant because they weren't here understanding, like, no, neither one of these. You got Negro and colored, those would be more, and freedmen, by the way, those actually are more historic. Kind of interesting. This is how you know what Tether put this together and a non-foundational Black American is involved in this. This is a complete outsider because it's worded as a complete outsider. Our names and identifiers are present, and changing that will cause confusion and harm the accuracy of results. Additionally, I do not support adding the terms slavery, slaves, freedmen, or foundational to the name and description of Black Americans. Consideration of such identification categories as American freedmen or American descendant of slaves will completely undermine accurate federal resource and funding allocation to programs and initiatives that aim to benefit Black communities. Again, how many of us from the lineage have seen any of this resources and funding that this person is talking about? Now, granted, this person will, because look at the funding that they're receiving. That's their funding partners. You notice all that funding they're getting right there? Yeah, we looked over that last night too. So, it's just kind of interesting. You know what I'm saying? So, again, let's see here. Okay, programs and benefit Black communities. These are not universally accepted terms or accepted or used terms for present day Black Americans. That's not true, ma'am. The FBA has been, and ADOS have been trending, and freedmen have been trending all year. Though our ancestors endured slavery, slavery is not our ethnicity and is dehumanizing and inaccurate to make slavery or slaves a race category or ethnic identifier. To accurately determine community needs and understand existing socioeconomic impacts, selecting Black or African American United States national origin is sufficient and is less likely to cause confusion or other issues. No, thank you for your time and consideration of this important issue. So basically what that says is all anchor babies would also be included in reparations claims and such. Because now you're saying U.S. national origin. So that means Black. And so also it keeps the identifier as well as being of any origin from an African nation. So then you would add that. So again, you're covering immigrants and you're covering anchor babies while trying to undermine us from being counted as how we desire to be counted. So I don't think you guys are understanding what's happening here. They want to push flat Blackness and we are not. And so as a group, they are fighting against our wishes to remain attached to us. That is the absolute sign of tethering. So shout out again to the Pan-Africanist Democrats that have played yourselves into oblivion with this foolishness that you guys have done. You guys have taken the Judas purse. You've taken the Judas purse, Pan-Africans. And so now let's just show you the damage that you've done. So let's get to it, shall we? Let's see. Let's start here.
A trip with deep political and personal meaning. Kamala Harris placing flowers in a women's dungeon at the Cape Coast Castle in Ghana, and walking through the door of no return, where millions of Africans were forced in chains onto ships bound for the Americas.
So being here was immensely powerful and moving.
Speaking off script about the brutality of slavery, Harris challenged growing efforts.
Whoa. Okay, so again, this is something that everybody knows she has absolutely zero connection to, zero tied to. She's not tied to the lineage, so why is she over there crying about the door of no return? Why was this even important for her to see? Because she has no ties to it at all. But, this is for show. This is all for show. And so what you are witnessing is more groups and connections that are trying to promote an anti-foundational Black American reparations agenda. Can y'all see that movement? So here we have people who help fund this very campaign, by the way. And now all of a sudden they're funding this? The undermining of reparations campaign? I mean, what is this? Hope you guys are seeing. And this isn't a Democrat like this. No. This is bigger than Democrat Republican. These are the people who, the puppet masters that make up your Democrats and Republicans. You can't make this a party issue. This is the money and the donors that create candidates and pay for elections. So yeah, you can't throw this on Trump. You can't throw this on Biden. This is an anti-Black agenda on both sides. And most definitely, Africa. Hope you guys can understand that part.
It's back home to censor Black history.
It cannot be denied. It must be taught. History must be learned.
A solemn moment to recognize the past during a visit Harris says is focused on the future, specifically for...
Why there, though? Why are we not focused on that here? Because see, the door of no return, that was a door of no return. There was hundreds of years of future atrocities after that door. How are you focused over there? That literally makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. Oh Lord, let's play a little more.
Women and young people.
To witness firsthand the extraordinary innovation and creativity that is occurring on this continent.
On the fastest growing and youngest continent,
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Harris met with young artists at a skate park.
Did you just hear that? The fastest growing, youngest continent. Africa's the youngest continent? How does that make sense? Africa's the youngest continent. How? Everything comes from Mother Africa. But I mean, see, just notice, no pushback there, though. Okay.
Park and recording studio.
You are speaking in a way that around the globe, people hear sounds that are rooted in concepts like freedom.
Joining her were actors
Now, all of a sudden, all of that mumbo jumbo going on a few months ago. Because remember, Idris Elba had something slick to say, and then also Sheryl Lee Ralph was singing the Black National Anthem, which of course, they were touting the fact that she's a Jamaican actress. She's singing the Black National Anthem at the Super Bowl, which made no sense. Don't know why you would not have a foundational Black American. Oh, I know. Because you wanted to spit in the face of foundational Black Americans. So again, having two disrespectful tethers right here together. Also, make no mistake that the other individual who was out there with them was none other than the NAACP's very own Reverend Amos Brown. Yes, you might know Amos Brown from the California Reparations Task Force, and also the one who proposed that San Francisco reject the $5 million cash payment proposal. And so, yeah. That's who all was out there for this little trip. So, just to kind of put it all in perspective for you, it seems, some people could probably say that, oh, okay, I see how you guys are setting this up to basically be something here. All right.
Idris Elba and Cheryl Lee Ralph, together to highlight the power of music to unite the global African diaspora.
And I know where my voice belongs.
A very strong Pan-Africanist push. And this is how we're getting there. This is how we're getting there. It's funded. It's not by accident. It's funded.
Harris's trip follows the African Leaders Summit held in Washington last year.
The United States is all in on Africa and all in with Africa.
Since then,
And now we have people here, Africans here, Pan-Africanists here, trying to undermine our reparations. You see this? Yeah. All right.
she is the fifth high-ranking administration official to visit the continent in a sweeping effort to strengthen relationships in a part of the world where Chinese influence runs deep. China has poured billions into infrastructure and development projects across Africa, including a $2 billion deal in Ghana to build roads and bridges. On this trip, Harris announced $100 million in security and but said the goal wasn't to counter China.
Wow. This trip. See, now look how fast they go over there and get money. So she went over there, sat down, and talked straight about money. Straight about money. I mean, here she shows up with a pledge of money, not a study of it. Here's a pledge of money for this, and this is going to take care of that. That's over in Africa. She shows up with a bag. They show up with us with symbolism and pats on the head. And here, I got the pen that he signed this bill in it. That's what black folks get. Kamala Harris show up, they talking about money.
Is motivated by the importance of the direct relationship between the United States and Ghana.
And Ghana's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, made clear he would work with both nations.
There may be an obsession in America about the Chinese activities on the continent, but there's no such obsession here. About China is one of the many countries with whom Ghana is engaged in the world. Your country is one of them. Virtually all the countries of the world are friends of Ghana.
The vice president is expected to announce additional investments later this week to empower women-run businesses, enhance food security, and promote climate resilience.
Climate resilience. Once again, family, this is funded. What do we always hear? The climate talk as well. Yeah, can't help but notice that. So let's look at a few white gentlemen who had something to say about reparations. First, this is Charlie Kirk.
Census Bureau, or the agency under the Secretary of Commerce, is debating whether or not to add a question to blacks of, are you a descendant of slaves? This is a precursor to reparations. And I am not a pessimist, but I want to be very clear that the pace that we're moving right now, you are going to live in a country where there is reparations. You're going to live in a country where white people are going to be forced to give money to black people for something you did not do, for something you are not connected to, just because you...
Wrong. And see, here's the lie that they always tell. And this, we go back to the content of character of the devil. But because the content of the character of the devil is to use deception in conversation. So here's the truth. You will get used to living in a world of America of reparations, of course. But all of this, the things that you're not tied to and the things that we're not tied to, that is absolutely not true. Anybody that benefits from ill-gotten gains is guilty of those atrocities as well. That is not a new thing. That is a historical thing. Matter of fact, this country says it was built on biblical principles, and that principle itself goes back to the Bible. So we're talking about a debt. And if you came over here and enjoyed the ill-gotten gains of that old debt, then yeah, you're tied to it too. And debt doesn't die. See, we understand, because here's another thing that all of a sudden people start forgetting how the IRS works. The IRS comes after offspring in certain cases. If it's enough money, they'll put that bill on the children. So the government has been known to do this before. So why would the government not do it now? And all of and then this is just a really, and this is a blatant white supremacist right here anyway in Charlie Kirk. But one thing I want you to know is that he is telling you, get ready to concede. Now, if you watch my last broadcast, I told you that they are prepping Africa for a new move, like America Site B. So I hope you guys are paying attention to all of this. This is the right-wing establishment talking to their base.
Look like somebody who did something bad. So I have some very simple.
No. And see, again, so this is the problem when you do the whole lying thing about what reparations is and who's going to pay and all of that. Like all of a sudden, just the blatant, I'm white and I lie so is what's taking place.
Simple questions for the reparation crowd. Do white people get money because our ancestors?
Nope. No, they don't. So no. So do white people? No, this is about the black, foundational black Americans. See how that question right there that opens it up? Look who's trying to disrupt the ironclad answer to it. That's not another white person that you see that's doing it, but they do have white money. Just can't help but notice. You understand what I'm saying? And then they're trying to look at all of these other, and this is conversation confusion.
600,000 of them died in the Civil War. So that blacks.
No, because they didn't fight in the Civil War about black people. That's not why they fought. See, again, understand the lies. This is content of character of the devil. And, this is why you're seeing things like this, because this is how it is. Got to understand who you're dealing with.
Could be free. Do we get reparations for that?
No. The black folks that were in slavery at the time of the Civil War were not freed because these people went to fight for their freedom. They fought for the United States government. So no, they don't, because they were United States government soldiers and troops. So what on earth would, see, the question that he's interjecting really doesn't make sense. And truth be told, what white people is he really asking for? Because the 6,000 that died, those would be, are you referring to the Confederate soldiers that died to keep slavery? But again, this is all financial. Because remember, there was no such thing as black people. There was only such thing as people as property. So they didn't fight for black people. That's not true.
Number two, what if a child is half black or half white, or a person?
If they're half a descendant of a slave, then yes, they get reparations. And no, they don't pay themselves reparations because the government doles out reparations. This man is very well aware of that, but watch the content of the character of the devil interject something else in there.
Is half white or half black. Do they pay reparations to themselves?
What
about new blacks into the country? Now,
okay, new blacks into the country. Again, we're talking about the descendants of slaves. Where do new blacks come into the conversation? Oh, well, man, maybe it's NBCI, but you could never, ever in a million years perceive that Charlie Kirk and this woman could have any connection around, could you? Well, maybe when you start thinking along the lines of agendas that actually fund campaigns, maybe it might make a little better sense to you. I don't know. Does it? But again, let's continue listening to this devil.
Nigerians, Haitians, people from Western Africa that have immigrated in that last 20 or 30 years. Nope. They have to pay reparations to other blacks that claim to be oppressed.
Hell yeah. What makes you think they wouldn't? Again, are they not coming? And again, you're mentioning some of these countries who had a hand in the slavery. So yes, they would be paying, but if they're not paying anything out of their pocket, they're going to pay taxes. And just like where all of this money going over to Ukraine and all of this money going over to Africa, notice how all of this money that they're shooting over to Africa, this isn't a problem for the Charlie Kirks of the world. Are you guys catching that? The money, and see, why would he even bring up non-foundations? What would make him even interject that question? So just notice that I'm telling you, they can't be connected by no means. Really? I'm just saying it's kind of a coincidence that they sound an awful lot alike.
Because their ancestors were slaves? How does one prove that they're descendants of slaves? So let me get this.
Now that is a question that you have absolutely heard from the Pan-Africanists. And these are the people who are trying to prevent us from delineating. Okay, now let me just read something back. Let me go back to what this says. Our identifiers have historical precedence and value, and changing that will cause confusion and harm the accuracy of results. Additionally, I do not support adding the terms slavery, slaves, freedmen, or foundational to the name and description of Black Americans. Consideration of such identification categories as American freedmen or American descendants of slavery will completely undermine the accurate federal resources and funding allocations for the programs and initiatives that aim to benefit Black communities. Now, what he just asked is, would these people get it? Now, notice the question that he's asking. If we have those identifiers in it, the question isn't even needed. So therefore, I just proved to you the absolute BS in the nature of the NCI or whatever, the NBCI, their whole movement. That's absolute crap. And so why would somebody like this elite list of donors have so much interest in a group that's philosophy is so confusing? And see, they're saying what we're talking about, which will make it very clear and distinct, they're saying that causes confusion. Well, I just proved to you, ladies and gentlemen, that this question that this man is asking, the last two questions that he's asking would be absolutely obsolete and irrelevant if you have foundational Black Americans as an identifier. Simple as that. And going to that being tied to the descendants of chattel slavery of America. So yeah, it's very clear, family. Why are they trying to interject the confusion?
Straight. It is evil and racist to ask a Black to go show ID when you vote, but somehow you're going to be able to have a Black show all of the paperwork that they're the descendant of slaves.
Why is that? I mean, and the whole ID thing. Now, that is a conversation. See, this is another thing that people like that do. And I think they're being taught or told or instructed to try to guide conversations in a certain way. And what they're trying to do is frame reparations as if it's a party issue, and it is not. And again, just to let you know that it's not a party issue, these people are not about party, they're about agenda. So they don't put money into party without an agenda of or from that party. So that's why this is not a Democrat or Republican policy. This is a black policy. And these are the anti-black and anti-black reparation money policy fighters that are enlisting coons, such like these group of individuals. They got some in Cobras, they got some NAACPs, and a lot of these other groups that they're trying to find ways to undermine our reparations claim. And now they got grassroots, so-called Pan-Africanists coming out here doing all of this other madness and confusion. And so you have to understand, when you are looking at absolute opposition that has been brought and presented to you by people like, people who represent that ilk, but more importantly, the people above that. And so when you're seeing money like this, you better pay attention. Now, let's listen to the next white man that has something to say about reparations and slavery.
Americans are doing better here today than they would be had their ancestors generations ago never been brought to these shores.
Wow. This is when you just don't care anymore, and you are recognizing that the writing is on the wall. And so you can't really do much else but just go full white supremacist.
You can prove this point by simply asking which African country anyone asking for reparations would prefer to live in. The answer:
no black person asking for reparations has mentioned Africa, because we're calling ourselves foundational black Americans. So saying, well, which black person asking for reparations what country in Africa would they want to live in? What? See, are you noticing that they keep interjecting things that do not belong? And another thing that's there that helps aid that conversation and confusion is the consistent tie to foundational black Americans to Africa. And now they're saying, well, man, because we have, once you cut that off and you start dealing with the specific claim here in America, the whole African conversation dies, and you have to deal with our claim here on this land. So there is a major agenda going on. And again, this is a right-wing man. So how is he using the same talking points as this African woman?
Of course, is none of them. Now, you might offer the rebuttal that if slavery never existed, if we're reimagining history without that institution at all, then Africa itself would be in a better shape, better place, and better shape, and maybe indeed black Americans would be better off there. But this seems highly unlikely, and it also
actually, that would not make them black Americans. See, within what his spiel, he knows he's full of it. So you're identifying black Americans as not being Africans, and then saying there are plenty of places. If things were different, then they would be happy in Africa. There wouldn't be no black Americans because there would be no America. But there would be black folks here of a certain lineage, whether you came here in slavery or through immigration, and your people got here by way of immigration or not. There would still be black people on this land. So again, that's another thing, by the way, this Jam woman and her ilk is doing. They are also saying that there were no black people here before the slave trade. That's another thing they're pushing. And they want other black folks. They want us identified that way. That's why they want to really start messing with the slavery, because erasing history. This is really, truth be told, low key, It's adding to our erasure, and it's helping the erasure of our history, while going over to Africa trying to do some fake praise of our history. That got nothing to do with what's going on here in America. That's why there is a mad dash to prevent us from soul identifying.
Ignores the fact that Africans participated in slavery and the slave trade as much as they were victims of it. Not to mention, if we're reimagining the world without African slavery, then we have to also imagine it without all other forms of global slavery. Since
listening to what he keeps doing, African. Foundational Black Americans are not African. This is not a mistake or a slip of the tongue that this man has just repeated African about 7 times within 10 seconds. You need to pay attention, family. There is a widespread agenda going on here, and I showed you the Democrat side. Now I'm showing you the Republican side, and they're all saying the same thing. Here's the African side. Here's the African side again. Notice how they are all saying the same thing. The only thing that you know now, oh yeah, by the way, you know, like that MacArthur Foundation that's also on here, and that Ford Foundation, they're also contributors to some of these other people who have spoken. So you always want to just keep an eye on that part too. Yeah.
African slavery was merely one variety, one offshoot of this global institution. And now we have totally, at that point, rewritten the history of the world in a way so dramatic that it's absolutely impossible to say which individuals today would end up worse or better in this alternate universe. I mean, if you go back in time and get rid of slavery from the entire world, you have just, it's impossible to say what the world looks like right
now. This is the content of character of the devil. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Nobody talking like this and looking like this wants you to get your reparations. And they're working very hard to convince you that you should probably convince the other Black folks to, hey, you know, maybe we should just do something else. I mean, maybe this ain't it. I don't know. Maybe we should just do something different. Listen, no, family. No. Listen to this.
Actually, what we can say is that we'd all end up worse. All of us today would be in a worse spot if slavery never existed at all.
No. Actually, the world would be in a worse spot had Black innovation not been widespread across the world. Like, for instance, the Moors taking your ancestors out of them caves and showing you how to properly bathe, showing you how to use knives and forks, showing you how to set a table, showing you how to have different meals and how to make variety of your meals to aid your body and your physical makeup. See, and also how to show you how to not put waste where you sleep. So you don't put your toilet next to your bedroom that doesn't flush, which these are the things that they were doing. So, I mean, this is documented history about these folks. I mean, some of these places and enclaves that you could have that some of these old Moorish explorers was running into, these folks, the smell, you could smell them from outside the town. That should not be, but that is the history of the people that we are referring to who actually just said it was slavery. Now, mind you, the African woman is telling you that we shouldn't identify with having that slavery description or descriptor on the United States Census. However, this white man says that the world is just so much better because of slavery. Well, then which is it? Is the world better because of slavery? Or is it just that you do not want us to identify with that old debt of slavery? And I would imagine it's probably most likely the latter.
Across the entire globe. because a change that significant would likely shift the course of events in a way that would mean none of us would even exist. It would be a world full of other people who are not us.
What the hell does that mean? Oh, you mean white people? So if slavery didn't exist and white people would have died out a long time ago, is that what he means? He might be right. So slavery did it ensured you got some more, more years on the earth, but your birth rates are still declining, that's for certain. But nonetheless, let's hear more.
So I know that I benefit today from virtually everything my ancestors did and every.
No. You benefit today from black people. And most importantly, foundational black Americans here in America. Not from what your ancestors did, but from what those black people built. See, he's trying to look at it as giving credit to his ancestors. No, they wasn't shit. No, they were fortunate enough to be in a lucky position. But they can't hold that position, and that position is gone now. And it will never return. So now, well, man, none of us would be here. Well, you here now, I guess, celebrate your ancestors. That's good to have in your mind, though. He who have an ear, let him hear.
Everything did to them, because if any of that had not happened, there's a very good chance that I never would have come into being. And as I see it, I benefit from being if the other option is not being.
I would have to agree. So with that being says that you are here instead of your ancestors who were slave masters. Very fitting for end time, shall we say. So here's one last video. And this is the last video of this broadcast that I wanted to show y'all. Another TikTok video. This is from TikTok, and this is two white women having a conversation. I'm not certain what broadcast this was from, but they're talking about slavery and how black folks must have enjoyed it. Just the delusion of these people is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So let's, Lord, let's hear this.
It was pretty normal to own slaves. Is that right or correct?
Why are we talking about slavery?
Because I'm showing you why the ad populum fallacy is a logical fallacy.
Honestly, back then, a lot of black people participated in the slave trade themselves, so...
Yeah, that doesn't make slavery right. Are you trying to defend slavery?
It was a product of the time, dude.
Are you trying to defend slavery?
Did you not see Matt Walsh's new video on this topic?
I did, and I think that defending slavery is cringe as
defending slavery, but I think we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of black people enjoyed being slaves.
Now, you understand the video that she just referred to. She referred to Matt Walsh. That was the video that I just finished playing you. So this is her in response to the Matt Walsh video that I just finished playing. This is her take and her attitude after seeing such video. And I just want you to look on the screen, look at the colors, look what's being represented here, and understand that, sometimes there's camaraderie and then sometimes there's not. But this white woman here who is talking to, I believe, this transgender individual, or maybe they're both transgender, I'm not certain. I believe the one asking the questions is. But I think this is a natural woman, but I could be wrong. Hell no, hell if I know. Anyway, they're backed up by a flag, so maybe it is a transgender. Again, and with that being said, who do we know who's been funding a lot of that? And so, with all of this rainbow love, there's still a boatload of anti-blackness. Ain't y'all see that?
Back when slavery was a thing.
Well, how do you know that black people enjoyed being slaves?
I mean, it's just in history.
Wow. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I will say, this is the character, the content of the character of the devil. Did you hear what this individual just said? Did you hear what they just said? Black people must have loved slavery. How would you know that black people love slavery? Well, it's just a fact. It's history. What? Who's she talking about? Like Mammy from Gone with the Wind? Ma'am, that was a movie. What the hell is she talking about? Like they were slaves. Oh, I just love this slavery. Oh, this bondage is just so great. Not being considered a human and being property is just so wonderful. I just don't know what my life would be if I didn't have Master and Miss Ann. What are you talking about? But again, family, like I said, did you see Matt Walsh's video? We are talking recent times, and this is not an old individual. So that means that these thoughts and these feelings and this anti-black understanding is fervently being continued and pushed throughout this dominant society by all sides. So whether you be the rainbow community, whether you be the donkey community, and whether you be the elephant community, or whether you be the RBG community and we are all one and black and this and that. However, all you are is puppets and pawns to all of this old slave-built white money you are looking at right here. You are traitors if you are black.
Right about like a lot of black people not only participated in capturing slaves, but a lot of black people enjoyed being slaves. Because of course, when you're really? Brought up doing something like being a slave your whole life, it's all you know. I'm sure a lot of slaves probably enjoyed it and were happy because that's the only lifestyle they were aware of.
That's crazy.
Can you not think like that? Like, is there?
So what was all the slave revolts and running away? What was all that about? Like, that's documented history. What about that? Notice how she's not talking about. She's giving you this false narrative that slaves were happy on plantations and being in bondage.
Really that dense?
I have never heard of somebody enjoying having to work countless hours on a plantation, being dehumanized and whipped and told they're not human, and being beaten within an inch of their life, and being
saying that
I don't think that people enjoyed that.
You can't deny the fact that there were probably slave owners that, just like there were really bad ones, there were probably slave owners that probably treated their slaves really nice too, right?
Oh. And some of y'all be like, man, we have some camaraderie with the LGBT. They just like black folks. No, the hell they ain't. Do you hear this foolishness? Do you hear this foolishness? And these are the type of people that you allow in black spaces and conversations. This individual isn't even talking from a perspective of a black person at all, but yet speaking for black people. This, again, is the content of character of the devil.
Right? Like, you're not thinking logically. You're being so dense.
So I'm just going to say that in general, I think it's wrong to own humans.
Of course. We're not in that time period anymore.
But you're defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm saying it was a product of the time.
You said that black people enjoyed being slaves.
I think there were probably a good majority of black people who back then were born and raised as slaves, probably because that's the only thing they knew. It was the environment they grew up in. If they had a slave owner who treated them well, they probably enjoyed their lives, a few of them. I think it's a...
If. So now she just made a declaration as a fact, but to substantiate her fact is a bunch of maybes and ifs. Well, maybe, and if this, and maybe, and if, you just said a definitive fact that black people enjoyed slavery. But your answer in explaining it is if, and maybe, and if, not I went and got this information from this, and I read up on slave descendants, and I got this information from this group of people. No. And this is why you don't allow outsiders on inside business inside conversations. Because truth be told, I don't know why they're even in this conversation. But I do, because again, we are getting hit at all sides. And the peoplehood people are also funded by the very same people, which are also low-key promoting this agenda on your screen.
Logical to believe that every person who was a slave back then hated their life. I truly think that's illogical. I do.
You think it's illogical that every slave back then hated their life? Wow.
I'm pretty sure that being owned is not a good thing.
Because you grew up in this generation and this is what you've been taught, and we know these things now.
No,
but back then,
not just because
those societal standards were not created yet.
Not just because.
Yeah, they were. What the hell are you talking about? Societal standards were not created? Yes, they were. And when you choose to go against the norm of societal standards to be the most devious devil known to the face of the earth, then you also have to deal with the consequence of people realizing that fact.
Because I grew up in this generation, but because I can think logically and morally on this topic and why it is unfair to own another human based off of their birth as having like a certain skin color, for example. That's unfair.
I'm pretending
and
like I'm saying it's okay to own slaves now, because that's not what I'm insinuating.
Yeah, no, you didn't insinuate anything. You repeated the same oh, golly. Now we're really getting into the devilry here. Okay, family, you already heard this individual mention 3 different times in this video that Black folks probably likes being enslaved. Now she's saying, I'm not insinuating that they like slavery. You already heard this person triple down on it. And now when this person frames it in a real true view of reference for real, now all of a sudden this person's position is changing. Jeez.
You are defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm just...
Okay, now you're blatantly lying. Because what did she say before? Did you see Matt Walsh's video? So you were, yes, and Matt Walsh was absolutely full-fledged defending slavery. And you agreed. Now this person is lying now. So after you've already heard them tell you, yes, I believe this, yes, I believe this, yes, I believe this, now you just heard straight out their mouth, no, I don't believe that.
Giving you the facts. Aren't you all about facts over feelings?
Yeah, and I believe that slavery is immoral.
Right, and I do too. But the fact was, back then, I think you're illogical if you think that some of them didn't enjoy being slaves or enjoy.
Where is her fact that any Black, she's saying, she's saying, I'm not defending slavery. But now again, she's doubling back around to say, well, I think it's illogical to assume that Black people didn't enjoy being in slavery.
Enjoy their lives.
Why would anyone enjoy being a slave?
That's the environment you grew up in. That's all you've ever known. So if you grew up in that environment and you have a slave owner who treats you well, that's just all they know. So they probably were happy about it. They didn't know freedom. Why is it so hard for you to understand this?
What is...
As a slave, you knew that you were in a condition subpar than other people. What is enjoyable about that? You know you're not free. Free was a concept before they ended up on ships and chains or ended up locked up in a plantation. What are you talking about? Slave patrols is because of, so you have a whole police force that is built off of runaway slavery. Like runaway slaves, escaped slaves. What are they escaping for? They loved it there? The hell is this nut on? But understand, man, let me just keep reiterating to you, and I want to tell you, Pan-Africanists are tied into this agenda. So you know.
Like a slave owner treating their slave well look like?
I mean, back then, I'm sure some of them, I'm pretty sure they fed them, right? Or probably that like they weren't whipping anybody or like not tormenting anyone.
Now notice how they say, I'm sure of. But there's no factual evidence this individual has put out whatsoever. All this is I'm white and I lie so.
And just like, I don't have like specific details for you.
Okay, as long as you're working.
See, now, okay, you just said facts, 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 facts. Well, I don't have any specific details.
Inhumane hours on plantations, but you're being fed, then that's a good thing.
Again, I'm not saying slavery
that.
was a good thing. You're not going to like try to make it seem like that's what I'm saying, because I don't know what you want me to say. If you want to believe that.
Too late, goofball. But here, let me tell you, when you have a bunch of runaway slaves, that tells you for certain that they were not happy on a plantation, genius.
Every person back then who was a slave hated their life. Go for it.
And this is why you don't have white people in your business. When we talk in black business, this is exactly why you don't have white folks in your business. They have no business being around our conversations because they cannot and should not be speaking in any environment to where we are talking about our experience here in America. That concerns nobody else but us. So I hope y'all are taking this good lesson to learn how to keep outsiders out of your mix, especially even understanding for you really extremely hard-headed individuals that these Nigerians are not us. And if you can't understand that they don't have any camaraderie with you, and well, you're going to be willing to play yourself. But one thing I need you Pan-African idiots to understand, we will not allow you to sell us down the river, and we ain't biting on this bill of goods because number one, when people are doing this, this is a Pan-Africanist call, and y'all ass is quiet. Y'all ain't saying nothing about this undermining of foundational Black Americans and reparations. So as far as I'm concerned, Pan-Africanist is on par and on line with them, and you are in league with all of these type of individuals as far as the eye can see. Because how is it that all of you have the same agenda? How? How is that so? So, again, somebody may have a difference of opinion about this particular conversation. I would love to hear it. You can go ahead and leave that comment below. But I mean, I really think that a lot of people need to seriously examine what they're doing and who they entertain. Because at the end of the day, we ain't doing no cis thing because we see that trans community is making a bunch of anti-Black movements and stereotypical tropes. And then we have their counterparts, the straight white men who are coming out here doing the exact same thing. And then we have these Nigerians who are trying to work on the other end to undermine our particular claim. So anybody who is saying that we should not delineate, my question first is,
where's your family from?
And then if you say, well, I'm from here, but I just believe that all Black people should be together and we should be fighting white supremacy together, although ain't none of them fighting white supremacy. They too busy kissing white supremacy's ass. But man, what we need to do, we need to get together with the diaspora and... So with that being said, if you are still stuck, not understanding who your enemies are out in this mix, anybody talking against reparations is an enemy. And even if they got Black skin, but if that part is too hard for you to understand, well, we'll leave you behind because this is your issue and this is what you need to do.
Get up off of that cocaine and get up off of that crack. Get yourself together and get your mind back.
Simply put. So, again, don't be
shuffling and scratching and bootlicking and buck dancing.
Don't let that be you. Because at the end of the day, we over here in the new Black media and the grassroots, us foundational Black Americans, we understand this about who you're taking money from.
The white man broke every law in the state and federal penal code system in order to establish every state in the United States.
So for those of you who are taking money from those different people, and for those of you who have questions on how you should respond to those people who are pushing these outside agendas and these anti-reparationists, well, the great Dr. John Howard Clark said it best.
Good evening, Dr. Clark. I really would like you to tell me what's the best way to handle an African American that gets in the way of the liberation of African Americans. I believe in this unity, and I'd love to love all of them, embrace them. Please tell me how to do it strategically.
Put space between you. Don't try to reform him. Give him the information, hope that he will use it. If he don't use it, then don't waste time letting him obstruct the movement. People who don't believe in themselves can't believe in you and can't help you. It's heartbreaking to know that there are some of us we have to write off so the rest of us can survive.
Straight up. Straight up. And so the rest of us need to know how to survive. And sometimes survival requires selfishness. And so in this particular instance, we need to be selfish and concern ourselves with our collective survival. And that is the lineage. So please like and share this video. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do so now. And you can also join this channel as well and become a member. And if you have not hit the notification bell, hit the notification bell, hit the word all. That way you will be notified anytime this channel goes live or a video is uploaded. So you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at beatzillapdx. You can email me at ourrealtruth@gmail.com. And all of the other contributing, the donation information, all of those will be in the description. So we have CashApp and PayPal if you would desire to support this channel. And of course, this is New Black Media Appreciation Month. So shout out to all the other voices of New Black Media, and shout out to all of you supporters of New Black Media as well. So with that being said, until next time, family, you stay black, stay vigilant, stay alive. Black first, y'all. Shalom.